Here is one of the strangest days the chip business has ever had. On July 29th, a company called SK Hynix reported its best quarter ever. Revenue up 257%. Profit up 557%. The stock fell 11% that same day. Best results ever, and punished for it. And it wasn't alone. All three big memory makers slid this month even while breaking records. Why? The market is asking one question. Is this a new era? Or the top of the biggest bubble in chip history? To answer it, you need to understand the most boring part of your computer. Memory. It just became the most profitable business in the AI boom. Every computer needs memory chips. They hold the data the processor is working on, ready for the next step. Your phone has them, your laptop, every server in every data center. For 40 years, memory was a terrible business. The chips were all alike, so whoever sold cheapest won. Prices boomed and crashed every few years. In the bad years, 2019, then again in 2023, memory makers lost billions. Investors valued them like steel mills, not tech companies. That world just ended. To see why, meet the only three companies left standing. Making memory got so brutal that almost everyone quit or went broke. Over the decades, dozens of makers shrank to exactly three. Samsung, SK Hynix, Micron. Together, they control about 90% of the world's DRAM, the main type of memory chip. Samsung leads, SK Hynix is close behind, and Micron holds the rest. Three sellers, and a world that suddenly needs their product more than ever. Keep that math in mind. Here is where AI changes everything. An AI chip is incredibly fast, but speed is useless if data can't reach it in time. Think of a race car stuck waiting at the fuel pump. So AI chips need a special kind of memory. Chips stacked into towers sitting right next to the processor. The industry calls it HBM, high bandwidth memory. Last episode, we saw AMD pack 31 terabytes of it into one rack, and we saw Intel design a chip specifically to avoid HBM because there isn't enough of it. Here's why there isn't enough. HBM is hard to make. Per gigabyte, it eats about 3 times the factory capacity of normal memory. This year, it will swallow about 23% of the world's DRAM output. The result, straight from SK Hynix, its memory, fast and ordinary alike, is essentially sold out through 2026. And big new factories won't be ready before late 2027 or 2028. The three are even racing ahead of the shortage. SK Hynix is already mass-producing the next generation, HBM4. Samsung answered by shipping the first samples of the one after that. Now, three sellers sold out and buyers planning to spend about $700 billion on AI this year. Here is what that does to profits. SK Hynix last quarter, 79.3 trillion won in revenue. A record. In fact, its first half revenue crossed 100 trillion won for the first time in its history. Operating margin, 76%. 76 cents of every sales dollar became operating profit. Micron, $41.46 billion in one quarter. A year ago, that number was $9.30 billion. The business grew 4.5 times in 12 months. Gross margin, 84.9%. And next quarter, Micron expects about $50 billion. Samsung's chip division, record revenue of 127.5 trillion won and 89.2 trillion won of operating profit. Now the comparison that should stop you. TSMC, the giant that manufactures nearly every AI chip on Earth, did $35.9 billion last quarter. The memory maker outsold the foundry. Investors have noticed, Micron is now worth around $1 trillion, all three together, roughly $3 trillion, closing in on Nvidia itself, at about $4.7 trillion as of late July. The market has repriced the boring memory makers as AI infrastructure. When something you must have runs scarce, you stop haggling. You lock in supply. That is now happening at a scale chips have never seen. SK Hynix says it has signed long-term deals with around 10 key customers. Micron goes further. Price and volume for its entire 2026 supply of HBM were agreed before the year even got going. Then come the mega deals. SK Group, SK Hynix's parent, signed a framework with Nvidia worth over $500 billion. AI factories, plus co-developing future memory. And Broadcom, the company building custom chips for the cloud giants, signed a 5-year framework with Samsung worth about $200 billion. Remember Episode 1? The King and the Rebellion. Each side has now locked up its own memory supplier. One caution: these are framework agreements, letters of intent, not firm orders, but they tell you who holds the power. So who pays for all this? Everyone, including you. The memory makers pointed their factories at HBM because that is where the profit is. That starved the ordinary memory that goes into phones, PCs, and game consoles. Micron pulled out of consumer memory entirely. The result? Ordinary DRAM contract prices jumped up to 98% in the first quarter of 2026, then another 58 to 63% in the second. And here is the twist that proves it. Samsung's own phone division lost money last quarter, 0.7 trillion won, squeezed by rising component costs. Samsung's memory division sets records. Samsung's phone division pays the bill. That is the AI tax. It is already in your gadget prices. So, new era or bubble? Here is the honest version of both sides. The bull case, this time, really is different. 3 disciplined players instead of dozens. Long-term contracts instead of monthly price wars. No real new capacity until late 2027. And Micron forecasts the HBM market growing from $35 billion in 2025 to about $100 billion by 2028. On that view, memory has become a utility for AI. Steady, contracted, and scarce. The bear case: we have seen this movie. Every memory boom in 40 years ended the same way. High prices trigger a flood of new factories. Demand pauses, prices crash. The warning signs are textbook. Prices doubling in a quarter, customers rushing into contracts at peak prices, margins so fat they invite overbuilding. And demand is already cooling. Price increases are projected to slow to 13 to 18% next quarter. There's a dark twist on those celebrated contracts too. If prices fall, locked-in volumes at yesterday's prices become the mechanism of the bust. That is why the stocks fell on record results. The market is not judging this quarter. It is judging 2027. You don't have to guess. 4 dates will tell us. August 26th, Nvidia reports. Listen for what memory costs are doing to its margins. Late September, Micron reports. Does the $50 billion quarter actually arrive? Late October, SK Hynix and Samsung report. Are prices still climbing or stalling? Early 2027, the cloud giants set their 2027 budgets. That is the engine behind everything. The takeaway: in a gold rush, sell shovels. In a chip war, own the fab. And in an AI boom, own the memory. Just remember the oldest rule of that business: the cycle has always come back. So far. None of this is financial advice, it's a map. Subscribe if you want to keep following the money.